What's up, everybody? We have 10 minutes here with Nick Laufenberg to discuss kind of the difference, if you will, between maybe a regular recreational long-range shooting rifle scope and a competition PRS rifle scope or something like that. Nick himself does shoot PRS matches, as you've probably heard in some of our previous 10-minute talks and podcasts. And Mark and I are rather recreational long-range shooters at times. But I know I spend a lot of time on the forums representing Vortex and the Reddit land as well. And I see many times somebody comes on, they're a new shooter, they say they're going to be shooting long range. Sometimes to them that might even be 500 yards. It's not even 1,000. But they say they're going to be shooting long range, and they ask for suggestions, and immediately the internet comes in droves saying, first focal plane or die. If you don't have a zero stop, it's a paperweight. You know, if you don't have 34 millimeter tubes or bigger, then you're going to be running out of adjustment at 300 yards. I mean, crazy things like this. You need this. Best optical quality, and next thing you know, this person who just kind of thought maybe I can get some help and I might try this sport out is being recommended a $2,500 rifle scope. You know,
completely overwhelmed. They gave up. They're going golfing. Actually, there's probably, you know what? I say that there's probably as much stuff to golfing as well. What club do I need? Oh, geez, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we brought Nick along here. Nick, what are some of the things, I guess, that for a regular long range shooter that they should be looking at as the bare minimums, and then as you kind of progress into this competitive lifestyle, what are some of those features that really start to make a rifle scope design for that arena shine?
Well, the first thing I always tell everybody who said they're just getting into it is establish goals and then know your equipment and what you're trying to achieve with that equipment. So if we look at maybe the average guy who thinks he's going to get into long range shooting, just wants to dip his toes in the water. Maybe he's 500 yards. That's as long as I can reach out to. I mean, that's a lot. That's way longer I've ever shot. To that guy, that might be long range. And to get an optic to achieve that goal, you don't need to buy a Gen 2 Razor or an AMG. Mm-hmm. They're wonderful. They'll get the job done extremely well. But you know, this is probably overkill for that guy. You have what do you have right here again?
Yeah, this gun over here, I've got a Diamondback Tactical 4-16. It's got a, it happens to be first focal plane.
Which is what you shot in the Vortex Extreme, that exact rifle.
It is, yeah. I've shot, this is actually the first time I ever shot out to 1,200 yards. I did it with this exact rifle and scope on a 6.5 Creedmoor Ruger American. And it's got good turrets, and it's got a good reticle.
Yep.
And it dials
same reticle that was in our Gen 2 Razor until last year.
Yeah.
So
and it dials well.
Very proven, definitely a very proven reticle, and the system, it just proves itself. I mean, you said you just went out to 1,200 yards at the Vortex Extreme, which that's a long ways. I don't care who you are. That's still a long ways. I mean, obviously with modern advances and people doing ELR and stuff, we're pushing way further past that. But, I mean, that's kind of a lot of people's goal when they get into this type of shooting discipline is the mythical 1,000 yards.
Oh yeah, it's
and once you're kicking the crap out of that at 1,200. So and that's what $450. What is that rifle?
Oh, it's $350.
$350
or something like that.
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
That just goes to show what you can accomplish for not a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so now when you consider that, maybe you want a couple other features. Something that scope does not have is a locking turret system, which you have on the Gen 2 Razors and the AMG and the LTEC system. You also have, in that system, you have a revolution indication in the Gen 2 Razor. This one's kind of an, I would say almost odd, but very unique. As you dial up your elevation, you have a little knob kind of pop out there to indicate how many revolutions you have dialed in.
Yeah, like on this scope, when I was dialing out at the Extreme, I had to be very conscientious of how many times I dialed it. And after I was done shooting, before going on to the next stage, I always had to dial it back to 0. And it doesn't have a 0 stop, so that's another nice thing to have when you're sort of in the heat of competition, if you will.
Absolutely.
But a couple times I had to do what I call the reverse 0 stop, which is I actually knew that I had 2 exact full revs available to me. So if I didn't remember if I was on the first or second rev, I just dial it until I bottomed it out. And I said, well, I know if I go 2 back from here, I'm on 0.
And that's actually functioning much like a 0 stop or a 0 locating system, I guess is a good way of saying it. But that is, I mean, that's a drawback, but it's also one of the reasons why that scope doesn't cost near as much money as a scope. There's a lot of reasons why in features and levels of quality, tolerances. There's just a ton of things that make up one of the wonderful things I've always loved about Vortex, even before I started working here, is the fact that we have something for everybody.
Right.
I mean, if you want to spend We got $2,500 here in the Gen 2, or I'm sorry, just the AMG. That's a 6-24 by 50, but that one is made right here in Wisconsin. Whereas this right here is a Japanese-made optic, the Gen 2 Razor. It's been one of the leading rifle scopes in the precision rifle series in the NRL for a long time. Extremely durable, very proven, and this one right now actually got a price decrease last year at SHOT Show, but this is $2,000. That's way outside of a lot of people's budgets, but most people can afford $350 and then get a lot accomplished for that money.
Yeah.
Well, and some of these things too, you take a look at this Diamondback Tactical first focal plane, right? If a person's goal is to I want to shoot long range, right? Maybe I'm not doing PRS where you're in the heat of battle or you're doing rapid engagements and multiple shots. They just want to shoot. You're not. I think you're less inclined to forget what rev you're on or make some sort of unintended adjustment in the heat of battle to where.
Or if you make a mistake, it's like, oops, okay, I can fix that.
Right, I got time to figure it out.
Not a grave mistake, but if you just kind of didn't dial quite right, you can always just send another one.
Yeah, you don't have like a plane ride involved and whatever. So
if you had to boil it down, or I know what I usually tell people, if I had to boil it down, if I'm looking for very just general recreational, fun shooting, long range scope that I don't want to spend a boatload on, I'd say as long as you have exposed turrets, or at least an exposed elevation turret that dials well, that has a reputation for dialing well, and a reticle that has hash marks in either MOA that match the turret and MOA turrets, or MRAD that match the turrets with MRAD turrets. I'm basically referring to not a BDC, essentially. Yeah. If you have those two things, that's kind of the bare minimum.
Yeah, and those are, and you can get away with even less than that yet, but I think that to get yourself started, it doesn't cost much money to get into a scope that has those features,
right?
And to give you just, I would say, an accelerated level of success without much effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the ones that I recommend very often, and it's actually a second focal plane optic, is the Viper HST. The 6-24 by 50 is a wonderful optic. It has elevation or revolution indication. It does not have a zero stop. It has a shim system that does limit your revolutions in the downward direction, so you can very easily locate your zero. That, from a functionality and just getting the job done standpoint, is excellent. When I was in MIL-LE sales, I can't tell you how many military sniper or law enforcement snipers were actually using that exact same optic because of its durability and its the feature set.
Nice.
And any department can afford one.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the price point. It's a very feature-rich scope. Like you said, it's got a great reputation for tracking true, and it doesn't kill you in your pocket.
Would you say that once, let's say now you graduate to the competitive side of things or whatever, you sort of probably have to keep, or I say you should keep, the same requirements as you did for the more recreational, fun shooting. But then as you get into some more sort of borderline, let's call them requirements for this kind of shooting, would you say that the only additional thing, or maybe you have other additional things, is first focal plane? Like, that's kind of...
First focal plane's a big thing. It's still not 100% necessary. Where first focal plane really comes in, especially, if you take me for example, I'll use an example that I use very often. This rifle scope is a 4.5 to 27 by 56. 4.5 bottom power, 27 on the top power. In most matches, I'm shooting between 12 and 15 power. I might stretch up to 18 sometimes. I really only use 27 power if I maybe have a really tiny target that's beat up and I can't see it very well. I'll zoom in. But I do that because I can utilize a larger field of view and more quickly transition from target to target, or after recoil, being able to watch my trace in the air a lot easier. There's a lot of things.
It's a little bit more forgiving to get behind and see the image when you're on a lower mag, too.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons why super high magnification is kind of, I don't want to say unnecessary, but you can get a lot accomplished with 20 power. That's why our 5 to 20 Razor Gen 1 was so very popular. It had enough to get the job done, and it was extremely durable and very reliable. If we look at just the general feature set of something like the Gen 2 Razor, it does have a larger magnification range. It has a locking elevation and windage turret, has illumination, and it has a zero stop. It has a revolution indication. It's got first focal plane. And again, where I was kind of going with the first focal plane, I could not utilize those numbers in the way, or the reticle in the way that I do if this was a second focal plane optic, because at varying different magnifications, that reticle subtension is going to be different.
Right. In the middle there.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now,
where's first focal plane coming into play for you? Like, what type of shooting scenario you're like, yep, this is an asset?
For me, any type of tactical field match or anything where speed is definitely a requirement, I think it's 100% necessary in my opinion.
you don't have to
speed
zoom out.
as far as like rapid engagements, like firing multiple shots in rapid succession.
Yep.
You don't have to.
Where I might change my magnification throughout the course of fire or just from stage to stage, I need first focal plane so that I don't have to do any math to think about, okay, where am I within that scale now?
Yeah. Zoom out to find the target, and then zoom all the way in to actually use your reticle subtensions if need be, or then you're dialing your turrets a lot more potentially with a second focal plane if you aren't using your reticle. You're doing things that would take more time.
Yeah,
with second focal
it's
plane and concentration.
That's a big thing. Now, if you're doing ELR or bench rest or F class, first focal plane is not necessary in any way, shape, or form.
True. Yeah.
Just because it's just not something you need to utilize. Depending on like if you look at our Golden Eagle, for instance, the 15 to 16 subtensions at, was it 40 or 45 power? I can never remember, but
45.
45, yeah. And but if that we have two options, we have the SCR and the ECR reticle, and only one of them even has subtensions on it because for that discipline, it's not 100% necessary. And
they actually use the target as subtensions.
Exactly.
The target has subtensions on it.
Correct.
So your reticle doesn't have to have subtensions on it. Well, we hit 10 minutes already. Man, these things always
that was
fly
really
by.
fast.
But we're going to give you guys some bonus minutes here because Nick did also have one other interesting consideration that I thought I actually never thought of before, or I'd thought of just not as intricately as he had. You actually worked out how much travel the scopes had in them, and then that came into play with determining how capable your rifle could be with that scope on it.
Yeah.
So can you go into explaining what you have a full-on list of numbers here?
Yeah,
what you do,
yeah. I filled up a sheet
process?
pretty quick today. I took 3 rifles, for example. I got my 6.5 here, which is kind of you could use it for a field match or something like the Vortex Extreme, where it's a little bit more weight conscious. You have the AMG on top still. An outstanding system. This is shooting I got my data here with a 147 ELD match at 2,700 feet per second. This rifle right here, this is a 6 Creedmoor shooting a 108 ELD match at 3,030 feet per second. And then I put my 22 trainer on here just because there's a lot of people getting into like the NRL 22 games, and it's really nice to know what type of distance you could theoretically get with your rifle versus optic setup. So if you look at the Gen 2 Razor, which is, has been popular for a very long time, and in the competition market especially, it just continues to either, continue its popularity or even grow now with the addition of the EBR-7C reticle. With my 22, shooting a 140 grain at 1,080 feet per second.
Oh, was it 140 grain 22?
Yep. I'm sorry, 40 grain 22. Yeah,
Okay.
I was like, what the?
What?
That's something I don't even know about.
That is the 22.
The 22 heavy?
Laufenberg.
Right. So this optic, for your turret system, you get 28.5 mils of elevation adjustment.
That's top to bottom.
That would be actually from top to bottom. That has actually got 33 mils of elevation adjustment. The LTEC system, one of the reasons why it is so durable and so reliable is the way that system functions. And with that zero stop engage, you do get 28.5.
Okay, got it.
Now, 28.5 mils, if we consider half that elevation adjustment and then adding on the additional cant of a 20 MOA base, which is what I use on most of my rifles.
So that's assuming that you're zeroed somewhere in the middle of the scope, hopefully, with 20 MOA cant built in. So that's going to change it a little bit.
It's an ideal scenario. You could have some barrel run out, which would cause you to have different amounts of elevation adjustment required to achieve your zero. But in this case, with my 22, I'd be able to get out to roughly 430 yards with this rifle.
Okay.
With this scope. If I were to take that same rifle and put a Gen 1 Razor on it, which has a 35 millimeter tube and allows a little bit larger elevation adjustment, I'd be able to get out to about 440. So really not a dramatic difference. Now, being that the Gen 1 Razor has a larger elevation adjustment, I'd be able to add more and more cant into my base and still be able to get out further and further. With the AMG, it'd be about 390 yards, and with a Gen 2 PST 5 to 25, about 350. So 350 yards is still
Still a poke with a
yeah.
22.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
no,
Jeez.
it's a long ways.
But let's say you have an NRL match where you know a target's going to be at 400.
Right.
I mean, you could go on and use your
still-
reticle
absolutely.
still, so
Yeah.
you have some
Yeah.
more adjustment for you in the reticle. But if you want to be able to dial and shoot off center, then
It's really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And
It makes more
reticles, like
sense.
especially like the 7C reticle, if you look at the design of that reticle across that horizontal stadia, it's really geared for having very refined wind holds, where if you start dropping into that lower pyramid, it's not quite as refined. So being able to dial your full elevation adjustment is a
Sure,
great
that
thing.
makes sense.
Yes.
nice.
Yeah, and if you look at my 6.5 here, which is probably the most efficient for stretching out as far as your bullet's really going to go, I'm able to get out to 1,710 yards with this setup as it is.
Okay. With
Actually,
the
no, I'm sorry,
AMG on
1760 with this particular setup.
the AMG on
so
there.
right to a mile with that. Yeah.
Likely a little bit longer than with the Gen 2 Razor, and then
Yeah.
even so with the
Which-
Gen 1 Razor, and that's kind of the pattern developing there.
Which is a mile is a
It's-
very long ways. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's really the kind of recap things on my end, my personal outlook on what you need to achieve your job is what is your goal. If you want to get to that 1 mile marker, you need to make sure you have the rifle for the job, and then obviously the optic for the job. If your goal is 500 yards, really only pick what you absolutely need to achieve your goal, what you think goals may end up being.
Cool. So there you have it, folks. I think that's a very sensible way of looking at it, and hopefully a less intimidating way of looking at it. Because if every time you got a gun to do literally anything, you had to put a $2,500 rifle scope on it, then it would be ridiculous. It's silly.
Yeah.
So yeah, look at us. We're telling you to spend
Less money. I know it.
Money.
Just buy more guns, though.
Yeah.
That's how we offset it. And then
Buy
keep
more
putting
guns, you'll
optics
need
on
more
them.
optics.
There you
Bottom
have it.
line, extending your effective range is a lot of fun.
Yes, it is.
Yes. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Like you said, you got a little bonus over 10 minutes here.
Quite a
So
bit.
yeah, like we said last time, I think it was, just tell your boss. We'll talk to your boss if you've been sitting in the parking lot a little bit extra on your drive-in listening to this one. So we'll talk. Yep. Thanks everybody. Happy hunting and shooting out there.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.